Zach. Welcome here.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. So, after a lot of trouble, we are now hopefully live.
Yeah.
I am not sure.
I'm alive. I know that.
Okay, but if we are not alive, then hopefully Timo Mahrik will join us and he will help us again. So, for those of you who have been waiting since 6 o'clock, we would like to
for waiting.
apologize. Yeah, like if you are still waiting, then like you are just super faithful and we are super thankful for you. But we had technical difficulties because always when you work, with computers and Zoom, there are technical difficulties. But Timo Mahrik saved us. So hopefully we are live and everybody can hear us. So if you are here and you are watching us, we will be very thankful if you will ask Zach some questions. And since we started a bit later, we will still continue for the whole hour. So we hope that you will enjoy it. And Timo, thank you again for coming. I think that you were running to the office because it was already after office hours and you saved us again. Okay, Zach, so who are you? Let's start with that question. Where do you come from? Tell us something about your family.
So I'm from the south part of the United States, from Arkansas. Slovaks say Arkansas. And even down at the bottom of the state of Arkansas. So we're pretty far south, just above Louisiana. And it's a little small town that we come from, only about 18,000, I think, people. And Kim, my wife, is from the same town. And so we grew up in the same place. And so that's where we're from. And we had two children before we came to Slovakia, our two daughters. And then after we came to Slovakia, we had two boys. So we have 4 children now. And at the moment, 2 of them have gone all the way through Slovak education, and they're now back in the States in university. And now our 2 boys are still here. One is in high school, one is in 6th grade now, 7th grade. And so they are continuing through Slovak school, dreaming about maturita and all of those fun things.
Yeah, if they did maturita this year, it would be very
a disaster. And they're all 4 of them are Slovak citizens, by the way. They just got citizenship last year. Parents cannot get citizenship in our situation, but our children can. So we're happy about that.
Did they have to make a test about what they know about Slovakia, what they like about Slovakia?
Definitely. All those things.
Okay. So I will ask you more about Kim and how, you get to know each other and everything. But before that, I would like to ask you about your hobbies, because you are quite famous because of your hobbies. So can you show us what do you like to do in your free time?
Okay. So I'm going to switch to my phone here. And so this could be tricky, but we're going to try it so I can show you a few things.
Yeah, I think we had enough technical difficulties today, so that should go smoothly, according to my...
Here we go. I'm going to cancel this one. Well, I'm going to maybe open this one first.
Okay, we can see you twice, and now only once.
Okay, I'm going to take my earphones out. Can you hear me still?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let me I'll just start by telling you a little bit about where we live. We live in a rented house here. This is our 5th rented house in this town that we've lived in.
And how long have you been in Slovakia? I am not sure if I asked.
The best house that we lived in all the time. So I'm happy about that. It just started to rain, but let me switch this around So
Oh,
this is our back porch, and
it's pretty.
this is my favorite hobby thing right here, the Weber
Mhm.
grill. So I'm not going to uncover it, but it's just a normal Slovak grill because I mean American grill because I love to grill food, and so lots of times, you know, I'm grilling the meat while Kim is making the rest of the food, and so we can kind of share the partnership of the meal that way. If I'm doing one part and she's doing the other, so we do that quite often. And but I really like to cook on the grill.
And
But
what's your
also out
favorite
here are
food?
my other favorite things, which are my plants, which I mean, we could stay here for hours just telling you about these things. This is my lemon tree that I bought about 20 years ago when I came to Slovakia, and it's still alive and growing. And I have lots of other plants here, but these are my absolute favorites, which are peonies in English, pivonias. And these, my friend Danny Jones, his house when he moved away from Slovakia, and I went this the house that they live in Slovakia in Angelina. So, but I'm ready to them now, and they're really my favorite things. And so this is just our outside, our patio, and we spend a lot of time out here in the summer. So
It looks
those
beautiful.
are just a couple of my favorite things. Is that enough?
Yeah. Zach, can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me because I asked you a couple of questions, but I will ask you again
Okay,
when you
give
are
me a
on
second to
the
get
laptop.
hooked back up here.
Mhm. Okay, so we are back.
Did you see everything?
I saw everything, but I think that you couldn't hear me because I asked you some questions.
Oh yeah, I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Okay, but I will ask them again. I
Yeah,
wanted to
sure.
ask you, what's your favorite meat to grill?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, the most famous Slovak meat, pork.
And what part of pork?
Like I started with the tenderloin, which is what is that? The sviečka, maybe, and then the loin is the bigger piece. That it's called. What is it called? Oh,
It's kare, right?
yeah, I got it.
Okay, I'm
Uh,
familiar with kare.
yes. So I love those two. You can't go wrong with either one of those. But of course, I love also ribs or chicken on the grill. Oh, it's just amazing. It's yeah.
And what's the weirdest thing you've ever grilled?
Uh, hmm. That's a good question. I don't know if I.
You don't grill weird things?
Yeah, I tend to stick with the things that I know, and I I've tried to grill things like pumpkin,
Mm-hmm.
a pineapple. Remember when we
Yeah,
grilled pineapple in Compass? That was pretty weird.
but it was really good.
Yeah, but it was good with ice cream. Yeah, we did it. That's probably one of the weirdest things I grilled was pineapple. Yeah.
Okay. And then I asked you, how long have you lived in Slovakia? Because you mentioned that you moved 5 times. So I was wondering, like, in how many years?
Yeah, so we moved to Slovakia in 2001. So yeah, that's 4 years per house.
Yeah. So you
Actually,
will
we've
have
been in this.
anniversary.
Yeah, actually, we've been in this house longer than any house, like 5 years or something. So it's nice not to have to move. But usually, it was always because the owner was selling the house, and like when we need a house that's big enough for 6 people. So like usually people are just not holding on to those places very long. So, but this house has been great for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope that you are able to stay there for long. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
so
my. Mhm.
we're coming up on our 20th anniversary soon, actually in October.
Mm-hmm. And how long do you think you will stay in Slovakia?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like we didn't come with a plan to stay a certain amount of time. We just came kind of with open hand and said, God, you use us and do with us what you want. And we really didn't have another plan to go back to the States and do something else. Like I don't have another dream apart from this one. So until God closes this dream, we will just probably stay here. So, but that could be tomorrow. You never know.
Yeah, but we hope that you will still like live here like forever or something.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit in time, and I would like to know some things about you that maybe not many people know. So, what was your family like when you were growing up? Like, would you say it was like typical American, and if so, like what it means, or was it like kind of Slovak, or so? What was it like to grow up in American family for you?
Yeah, I think we were a pretty classic American family. My parents were believers, and so I grew up in a Christian home. So from that side, it was unusual, probably. And my father was also a pastor, so that was also pretty different. But a lot of pastors' children have bad memories of being in like a ministry kid, but I'd never had a bad experience there. I really loved my experience in the Christian home and in the church. Growing up around the church, I just always loved it, and that was part of I guess my dream. That I wanted to participate in what I experienced and what I saw, and so I wanted to be involved in that in my life too. And I think God just used that as to develop my dream to be in the full-time ministry. But so that's the way I grew up, and I think we had a wonderful home. My parents were wonderful people. They both passed away in the last few years, but they served in one church for their whole life, over 40 years. Well, they my dad retired for like 10 years, and then he took another church for another 10 years because he was tired of being retired. And so he was he and my mom were amazing partners and teammates, and they served together for their whole lives, and they really enjoyed it and served God in an amazing way. And so I watched that and really fell in love with that whole life and lifestyle and vision.
Mm-hmm.
I had
And
2 brothers. I have 2 older brothers, and they still live there in that town in Arkansas. El Dorado is called El Dorado.
it sounds
And,
South American, like Mexican or.
and so
Okay.
they still live there. They're older than me, and so we grew up 3 boys in our home.
Mm. And how did you meet your beautiful wife?
Hmm.
When was that? How old were you?
Um, well, because we were in the same town, she started attending the church that my dad was the pastor of at some point, and we're 7 years apart from each other. So I'm 7 years older, and so when she came into the church, I was much older, and so she was just this kind of little kid that I didn't pay that much of attention to, but I remember her. But that's the way we met when she came with her sister to our church, or to my dad's church. And so, but it wasn't until much later, when I was in seminary and she was in college, that that we first, or that we started seeing each other as more interesting. I actually went to Africa for a year to serve there on a short-term mission, and when I came back, she came to my welcoming home party, and when I saw her, I thought, who is that? Like, it was a brand new revelation, this person that I felt like I never knew before. So
And how old was she when you came back from Africa?
I think she was 19, and we didn't marry until she was 21.
So then, like, did you ask her out, like, when you came back?
Not immediately, no. We met at another person's wedding in our town, and after that, she actually came to visit me where I was in Dallas, in seminary, and so that's the way we started kind of getting more serious.
But why did she come visit you? Like, because you already, like, there was something there?
Yeah, you'd have to ask her that. I don't think so. I think she just came. We were just friends. Like, there had been nothing, established beyond being friends, and so she was just coming there as a friend.
But then she left as someone else.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't know. You better ask her about that first too, because I don't know.
Okay, I will definitely invite her for a live stream.
You can't assume these things. But definitely after that time, I was thinking more seriously about it after that, definitely. She had caught my attention for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you were a year on, like, you called it like short-term mission. For me, a year seems a little bit long, but
yeah, I had been to Kenya even before that. Like, after my second year in university, I felt like I wanted to go and experience another culture somewhere. And so during the summer after my second year of university, I said, I want to go somewhere. And so I had some friends that connected me with the mission in Kenya. And so I went there for a summer, and I just had the best time, fell in love with the country and the people and the ministry there. I was able to teach in a Bible college there. And so then I finished university, and I went for my master's degree. And after my second year of my master's studies, I felt like, I just want to go back again, except for a longer time. And so I took a year off from my studies, and I went and just served there. And so, I mean, I would highly recommend it to anybody, just to get away. When you go to another part of the world, you just get a tremendous eye-opening experience, because I had never left the country before those experiences, and it was really enlightening, absolutely, for me, coming from a small little town. So, and your life is, you have plenty of time at that point. I wasn't married, I wasn't dating. It was like, why not do something like that, and then invest into the lives of people, and give of your young energy and strength, and maybe what small knowledge you have to serve in another place. It's a real passion of mine. I would definitely do it again, maybe more, if I had a chance to do it again. So I would recommend it to Slovaks, anybody who hears, just stop trying to get down the road so fast, take time off and serve and do things like this. Get exposed to different parts of the world.
And have you ever thinking about going back there, like after your experience, to be a missionary there?
I never did. I never felt like God was calling me there back as a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to go back someday, even to serve on a short term. I was able to lead a young man to Christ there when I was there. And so we're still great friends. I'm texting with him all the time. And now that communication is so easy, we can communicate. He was with me at the ELF seminar this weekend, or the conference. And so we exchange, thoughts about the seminars and things like that. So I would love to go back and be with him. Now he's married and has children in the ministry there of his own. So I would love to go back there and be with him someday.
Okay, so then you came back, and you mentioned that you studied at seminary, but I'm not sure how it works. Is it clear when you say that you studied at seminary what you were studying? Mm-hmm. Because so you can study a lot of things at seminary. Okay, so what did you study?
Well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had been to Bible college already, and I'd studied 4 years just Bible and theology, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But I never felt like God was calling me to be a pastor, and so I was kind of just doing a general theological and Bible study direction. But when I got to seminary, I felt God drawing me in more into youth ministry direction. And so I began to focus more on youth ministry along with the Bible and theology that I was doing. So that became more of my focus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that is the direction that I ended up going.
So then you got married to Kim, and then what happened?
Well, we started in youth ministry together. And
in Arkansas?
No, we actually, I did one of them. I have 2 master's degrees. I did one master's degree in Texas. Then I went to South Carolina, and that's where Kim was in school, mm-hmm. in South Carolina. So we went to the same school together. She was in the undergraduate, and I was in the graduate program. And so when we finished there, that we were there on the East Coast in South Carolina. And so we were in one small church while I was in school in the youth ministry. I was a part-time youth pastor there in a church. And then when I finished school, we got a job at another church in a nearby city. And we served there for about 4 years together as a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm. So, and how did you learn about Slovakia? What was your first connection? How did you even find out that country like that exists?
It was pretty interesting. When I was a youth pastor there at that church, I had this burning passion for the world. And so part of my youth ministry strategy was to introduce young people to service, but also then missions, world missions. And so I had a whole program built where even from the youngest teenage age, they would start serving locally. But by the time they were like a senior or graduating from high school, then they would go on a foreign missions trip to another country. So it was like this graduated kind of program to give them a passion for serving, but also for the world. And so one summer, so I was constantly planning these trips. And one summer we planned a trip to go to Moldova. That was where we were going. And the organization we were going with was organizing that trip for us. And we were going to take young people there. But at somewhere in the process, they called and said, the trip to Moldova is not going to work out. So, but we can, so we need to cancel that, but we can offer you another trip to a place called Slovakia. And so if you're interested in that, we can start going in that direction. And we said, Moldova, Slovakia, we don't know where either one of those places are. So, let's go. We didn't really care. We just wanted to get over to a foreign place and expose young people. So that's the way we got involved with Slovakia. But then in the process, I found out that my childhood friend, Danny Jones, was already in Slovakia. I hadn't even known that at that point. And so I was like, wow, this is incredible. This person that I know so well is already there. So I said, let's try to coordinate something. It was really amazing, this connection. And so we got connected. We came over. That was 1998, and we came to Bratislava, and we did ministry there in Bratislava for the summer of 1998. But I remember sitting there in Bratislava with Danny, drinking coffee, in the city, thinking, wow, this is a cool place. We could probably live here and serve here. But it never really stayed in my mind that much longer, that maybe we would come back. I had set my vision toward being an American youth pastor, and that's what my vision was, and I didn't really consider anything else at that point.
Mm-hmm. But then, like in 3 years, you were here full time, right? From 1998 and 2001. So what happened in those 3 years? Like, what changed your mind, or just like what confirmed your calling here?
Well, there was no calling at the beginning. Like, I was just staying on the youth ministry track, and I just, maybe God did try to communicate that to me during that time in Slovakia, but I didn't get it. I didn't hear it. And so maybe that was my fault. I don't know. But so, God had to change tracks for me somehow, because I was on the one track and I think he didn't want me there. And so, but, I think that is often the case in many of our lives, that somehow we're on one track and God wants us on another track, but like we don't get the message, we don't get the signal. And so something has to happen. And so what happened with us is that suddenly what the ministry that I was in began to like implode, I guess you could say. And we just kind of stood back and watched as the whole thing kind of crumbled. And it was just shocking. Like, we thought, how is this possible that everything is just going wrong in this? But we did sit back and watch, but it was very, very painful. It was very personal too, because like this was my job, my role. I was supposed to be leading this, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working well. It was going down. And so, but I think it just happens. I think sometimes God limits us from going further in a career or a job or something, specifically because he doesn't want us to go there. He wants us to go somewhere else. But as spiritual and as holy, as I was supposed to be as a pastor at that time, like, it was painful and it was personal, and I wasn't completely confident that this was going to work out, and this was actually going somewhere. So it was not fun.
Mhm.
It was very hard. And so, you know, I resigned. I in the end, I resigned from the job, just shaking my head, going, I really don't know what just happened here, over the last, 6 months or something, that all this happened. And, but then what? Like, I had no direction from God, like, other than to just go to another church. And I thought, okay, this is fine. If God wants me to go to another church, it's kind of strange, but I'll just, churches in the States are, they're everywhere. So you can just pick another one. It's easy. Except when we started looking and picking, to go to somewhere else, nothing opened up.
Mhm.
And everything we pursued and tried, it just closed. And so this went on for us, a month, and then 3 months, and then 6 months, and then a year. And we're thinking, okay, I mean, those were dark times, because, and when you're in that place, you just start wondering, you just start thinking, like, what's going to happen with us? When, where's God? Like, where's God, and where is His, faithfulness, and all the stuff that we heard in the Bible and read in the Bible about good and faithful and leading and Holy Spirit and all that. Like, where is all that? And it's easy to look back now, but it was very difficult, and one of the most difficult times in my life. So, just to say that there's probably people listening and watching now that maybe are in those dark places now, and I don't feel I feel sorry from one side for you, because it's not easy to endure those places. Um, and it definitely wasn't for me either. But like, I was writing and journaling in that time, and I can look back in my writing, and I was just pouring my heart out to God, and not knowing, what was going on and why this was happening, and trying to understand why God wasn't speaking, why He wasn't leading. But I feel like God just had us in. It was a testing place. I really feel like it was just a testing place to see if we, all the things that we claimed, like to know God, to be able to follow Him, and being willing to go do whatever He wanted, to wait. It was all part of the test. And so, um, somewhere, yeah, I mean, I have it written down, the day that everything kind of broke. And it came from an email that Danny Jones, who was in Slovakia, wrote to me and said, I'm still thinking that maybe it would be a good idea for you to come to serve in Slovakia. And I just thought, what? This is a wild idea, because I had not entertained it. But, looking back now, that was the turning point, and I wrote it down. I think I wrote something like, finally, some movement, that there had been this kind of opening. But for sure, I didn't feel like, ta-da, here we go, because it was far from my mind that this was what God really wanted. And then I had a wife. We had just had our first child, and to think that she could also entertain this idea and go for it. It was a big question. So, but that was the turning point. And then for a while we said, okay, this is one idea, but like, it's pretty far crazy idea. So let's just try to pursue both of them, Slovakia and finding another church. but after, I mean, that went nowhere. And so we finally said, let's just put all of our energies into this, the proposal for Slovakia, and just see what happens and just see where it goes. And as soon as we started moving in that direction, everything started opening up. People started agreeing, saying, yes, it seems perfect for you. People started supporting us, getting behind us financially, and just so many things it was all just the yeses in this direction. So we thought, okay. So it was like we were being suddenly swept down this path by God and all of his things that he had already prepared. And so that's the way that all happened.
And so, but did you like visit Slovakia, like you and Kim, before you moved, like definitely? So she
Yes.
saw the country before she said
Well,
yes.
she was with me when we came the first time.
Okay.
Yeah, she was with me, but we did, but because she had seen the country and everything, she was at home with the baby, and so I did come back by myself, but she didn't come with me that time. But she already knew, you know, what the country was like, and we had actually, our group helped to build the foundation of Velké Slavko, the conference center in Velké Slavko. We dug all the ditches and things like that in that part of the time.
And do you remember your first month in Slovakia? What was that like in 2001?
Well, we were trying to get a house prepared for us to live in, but it wasn't finished by the time we got here. It just didn't work out. So we stayed in Compass for the first, I think we stayed 3 months. How long did we stay in Compass?
It was just 6 weeks.
6 weeks, she says. So it was 4 of us, and we just stayed in one side of Compass for that month while we were trying to get the house ready, painting, and we were also waiting for our container to come. So it was okay because we didn't have the stuff, our container anyway. So that's the way we spent the first month or so, was in top of Compass.
And what was your biggest surprise, like after you came to Slovakia, and something that like you just didn't expect it?
They spoke a different language. No. Yeah, I'm not sure if there were like some really big surprises, but for sure, like we had to struggle to move and get into the house that had been organized for us, and that was much more work than we anticipated. So we spent a lot of time in those first months repairing, painting, just getting the house to be in livable condition. So that was probably a big surprise at the beginning. They didn't ask us to do a lot of work or anything at that time. So it gave us the space that we needed to really make a good place for us to live. But it was probably more work than we anticipated. But wonderful when the container came and all of our stuff was there, and for our children as well, all of their toys and beds and everything was there too. So it was perfect.
Yeah, and we have one question from audience, from Jacob Ellis, and he would like to know, how do you deal with the language barrier?
Yeah, good question. Well, it's kind of a long story, because when we first came, you know, there was a lot of English speakers in Compass where we worked, and so like we were able to fully function in English most of the time. But when we needed to go into the city and do something that required Slovak language, we would have to have somebody to go with us. So that was our first answer while we were trying to learn the basics of the language, was to have somebody to help us. And we were helpless, and we had to have somebody with us during that time. And there were a couple of people that are probably, more than a couple, that would go with us shopping or go to buy a washing machine or something everywhere we went, and somebody would go with us. And that's the way we dealt with it for the first, probably a year. But then the more we were able to learn basic words and phrases and things, then we were able to survive when we went into the city, or we needed to communicate in Slovak. But those were tough times in terms of language. And so, but we felt like, if we just have 6 months or a year, then we will be able to communicate and we'll be fine. But it didn't turn out that way for me, because in the end, I was not very good at language. And I think we already knew that when we came, because we took a language test before we came. And when they saw the results of my test, or our test, they said, "Don't you want to consider maybe going somewhere else where the language is a little bit easier, maybe Spain or South America?" And like, we didn't know what to say, like, because we had no calling to Spain. Like, our calling wasn't based on the language. It was based on really what we believed God had called us to and led us to. So like, we couldn't say, "Yeah, okay, so we won't go. We're afraid. We can't learn the language." And so we knew that kind of coming in, but we were just trusting God with it. So as it turns out, I have really never learned the language that well. Like, I don't teach in the Slovak language. I can barely be conversational now, but I've always taken Slovak lessons. I've never given up. I'm still in Slovak lesson every week, and I'm getting better and better. I'm better than I've ever been. But that's not saying very much. Like, I'm not very conversational, but like, I can function now on my own. I don't need people to go around with me. And so the language has been a struggle for sure, but it's just always been something that we felt like, God sent us here. And if we get the language, it's going to be wonderful. But if we don't, God's going to let us serve here as much as we can with the barriers that we have. So that's what it was for us. We don't recommend that path for people. It would be much better if people learned the language, but that wasn't the case for us. Kim, my wife, is better than me, but we both kind of suffer. And those that have to listen to us suffer.
Okay, so but I'm very thankful that you still trying and you haven't given up. And Slovak language, it's difficult. Even for Slovaks, it's very difficult. So thank you very much for staying here still. Even if it might be easier sometimes, just to return to your first language country. But I wanted to ask if you have any favorite place in Slovakia, like some place that you really, really like to go to.
My house right here, my backyard, my garden. But I also have, somebody gave me a 4-wheeler from America, and they sent it over by container. So I love to ride my 4-wheeler up on the nearby hills and the mountains here. So I'll just drive up there and look at the mountains and the animals and forest, and I love to go up there. But other than that, like, special places in in Slovakia. I mean, we love to go to the cities. We love Bratislava. We love Košice, just to go there and spend times in the cities, and we love being there. But of course, we go to the nature as well. We can go skiing we usually go close by to Čirkova or someplace like that, that's only within an hour of here. But of course, we love to go to Tatries, but we have a lot of wonderful places that we've been in Slovakia.
And I would like to ask you some more questions from our audience. And one question that we got from Instagram and also now on YouTube is connected with your hobbies. And Tibor Mahrik and Timothy Mahrik, they would like to know if there is any hobby that you cannot do here in Slovakia. And Tibor Mahrik is asking specifically about hunting.
Yeah, maybe he knew I was a hunter because, yeah, I love to hunt. I always hunted growing up. We hunted ducks and squirrels and doves and deer. And so it was just a part of my life, hunting. And I actually thought that I could hunt in Slovakia. And so I arranged that I could bring my guns with me. I had the permission from the government. And so I brought them. But yeah, it hasn't developed over 20 years. I've never hunted. The guns are still under my bed. So it didn't work out, which is that is disappointing. But yeah, I just kind of gave it up because it's not like, I don't think it would be the same anyway. It's just not the same environment, like the whole hunting thing here. And so I kind of gave it up. But if I could do it, I probably would do it again. And fishing.
Mm-hmm. Is there
I would love to I'd just love to kill one yellen, before I leave Slovakia. Big one.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. It's so hard for me to relate because, like, I think these animals are just so cute, like all of the ones that you mentioned. That I'm like,
They
yeah.
are.
But I understand the passion behind it, but it would be difficult for me. Are there any other hobbies that you like? Would you like to do, but you cannot since you are in Slovakia, or just like hunting and fishing mostly?
Well, in the South where we're from, water sports are super big. Like, we have a lot of water, public lakes,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to fish, like, you have your own boat, but also people are skiing, that it's a big hobby and pastime, like on weekends, that you take your boat, you just go to the lake and you just ski, you swim, you just play in the lake because it's so hot, the water is warm, it's just amazing. Mm-hmm. But here it's just so different. The water never is warm. And so that's just a big deterrent to being in the water, and it's something that I really miss. It's just kind of, well, but also swimming pools, swimming here is just so unpleasant for people like us from the South, where the water is always warm and the weather is very hot. So I really miss those kind of water sport things in the summertime.
But Croatia is saving this a bit, right?
Well, we actually kind of thought that, but when you go to Croatia, the water's still cold. Like, I hate it. I love Croatia. I love going there. It's better, but it's still cold. The water is so cold. I just, you have to go to Greece, I guess, or somewhere away in France or
Caribbean,
more south, yeah, to get the warm water again. That's the big difference. Like, if you ever go to America and you swim in the ocean and like the southern coast, like, it's like, wow, so warm and comfortable.
Yeah, I hope to go one day to experience that. I also don't like cold water. Mm. Okay, I would like to ask you another question. It's again from Instagram. And the question was about your morning routines. So when you wake up in the morning, what time is it and what do you usually do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, like I would say, morning really throughout my life, I've learned that morning is so critical. Like, and I've heard other leadership counselors, and advisors say, you have to conquer your morning because it's such an important part of the day. And so I learned that, or I watched that happening in my family. I remember it was later on in my teenage years that I finally realized that my father got up before everybody else and that he spent time with God in the morning. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, why did I know this before, about my father? But he would always wake up early, spend time with God before anybody else got up. And so that was the model that I had. And so I have tried to keep that pattern in my life that I get up before everybody else so that I can, well, I think it's also about being the father where you're trying to set the day right for everybody else, whether it's getting the house warm or making, I always make tea for my children in the morning. I've done it, for 20 years now here, but it means that you have to get up before everybody else. And that can change. When the children were small, they were not in school, then they weren't getting up until later. I could get up at 7:00. But then when they started going to school, it just the time kept moving back and back as they got older. And so I was at a long period of time, I was getting up at 5:30 every morning just so that I could get ahead of everybody. But like, you just have to keep adjusting it based on what your family needs are. But now our kids are older. They're and not right now we're in quarantine. So I get up maybe at 6:30, something like that. And so they're not getting up until later. And so it's not such a much of a routine right now. But that's about what time I get up. And so I get up, and usually the first thing I do is make coffee for myself. And also, like, because I'm in the kitchen, then I recognize that there are things that have not been cleaned in the kitchen from the day before. So I'm usually working in the kitchen, cleaning up from whatever needs to be picked up or cleaned up or washed or prepared in the kitchen. And then I take my coffee and I go and sit in my chair.
Where is your chair?
It's right behind me. Can we switch again, and I'll show you where I am.
Yes, please. Can you hear me? Or if you cannot, then I will not ask any questions and you can just tell us whatever you want. We cannot hear you.
Okay,
that's much better.
Okay, so this is my chair. I just moved from our dining table to my chair, and this is my chair. And sorry?
It looks very comfy.
Yeah, it's a comfy place, and I get to look out the back door. This is my view. I look out, so that's nice. So I'm sitting in my chair with my cup of coffee, and then I have all my books over here. That, like, I have my Bible here, any of my devotional books. But at the moment, I'm not using those. I'm using my Bible app on my phone. at the moment. So I typically right now, my routine is to look at the verse of the day from my Bible app and then go from that verse to the chapter where that verse is and read from the Bible from that chapter.
Do you remember what you read today morning?
Sorry?
If you remember what verse you read today.
I don't remember, no.
Sorry for the tricky question.
But I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast. But it was good for me, I know. It helped me to make it through the day. So then after I spend, I can spend an hour here, maybe half an hour sometimes, especially during the quarantine. Mm-hmm. Don't feel so under such a strict schedule. And so, but this is where I start out. But then after I'm here, I like to go, because other people are waking up at that time, and so I want to go and spend some time in prayer, and so I go somewhere else.
Where do you go?
Oh, thank you for asking.
If that's not a secret,
I'll take you there. So I usually go upstairs. So you can come with me. And it's just another room upstairs where I can go and be quiet. So this is just our TV room. And so usually I come here and I work out here. Mm-hmm. I have an elliptical here that I use. I try to use the elliptical twice a week. Otherwise, I get myself on the floor and I do sit-ups first, like this. So I do sit-ups, then I do this exercise, which is the most horrible. It's called the plank, and it's awful.
What's your record? How long can you stay in plank position?
I've done 4 minutes before, but I usually do a minute and a half.
Still very good.
I love plank because it's the most painful. And I feel like if you can push through the plank, it's a good discipline for other things. So, and then I do push-ups, just push-ups. And then I just go through an exercise routine in the morning like this. And during Corona, I've started watching podcasts on the TV, on YouTube. There's some amazing leadership podcasts that I've gotten into the habit of watching, which is very good. So I usually do that while I'm exercising, and then either before that or after, then I just try to come here to the couch and just kneel before God and just spend some time in prayer. And I don't right now, I don't have some structure that I'm trying to follow. What I'm trying to focus on now is just to try to spend more time with God. And I've had lots of routines in the past where I'm praying through lists of requests and things like that. But at this point in my life, I'm trying to spend time listening more. I'm trying to discipline myself to listen. And it's not easy. After years of developing a habit of asking and going through a list, it's like the plank, Mm-hmm. It's tough to just stay here and not ask and just listen and just be in the presence of God. And of course, I'm pouring out my needs and things to him, but also just trying very hard to just be in his presence, let him speak to me, bring his thoughts. And I keep my phone with me all the time, because as soon as I get a thought, I will stop and either write it down. Sometimes God says, or it seems like God is saying that I should write someone or even call someone. So I'll stop and write them or call them or text them. And then I'll come back and continue to pray. And so, or write myself a note for later. And so I'm just working on spending more time here and being with God here. So,
Zach,
and then, yes.
why do you kneel when you pray?
I didn't always, and I don't think it's necessary, but it was just one of those things that I felt like was an extra, like just emotion, that I could do to put myself in submission before God. So it's just a kind of a emotion that goes along with what I want my spirit to be. And I don't know, I think it's good, because if people come in, you're not just sitting here, like they know what's happening if they walk in. So if you're sitting in your chair, then nobody knows that you're praying. So like for my children too, I think it's good for anybody who might happen to see you, like they know what's happening. So I don't know. I just started it maybe a couple of years ago. So it wasn't something that I've always done, but I think it's a good practice.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if we already answered that question, but there was one question on Instagram about like, how do you deepen your relationship with Jesus? And like all of this routine is probably part of it. But is there anything else that you would like to add to this question? Like, is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I have done different things through the years, but like I think journaling is fantastic. Like now, when I look back on that dark period of that transition period to Slovakia, I journaled all through those times, and some other times when I got to Slovakia, I journaled a good bit, and I'll go back to it one day too. But so I would suggest that. But I think maybe the other big thing for me is music and worship. Like I don't think I could make it without the constant and regular worship music that I it's like I just wash in it. And I think I many times, I'm struggling with things that I feel like I'm attacked by my own thoughts, by my own negative ideas and temptations, or thoughts from Satan. And worship music, like I listen to so much. I'm listening now, just in the last maybe 2 years, to like Elevation Worship, Hillsong, Bethel. That's the stream that I not because I like the music so much, but it's the words of those songs just build me so much. And I just think it's just been my rescue so many times in the last 2 years, and I think I couldn't do without it. It's so powerful for me. And so I can't say enough about the importance of that for me and my health in the last 2 years. So, and I would just say, like, sometimes I play it in the house for everybody to hear. Sometimes I'm It's here in this room. I'll play it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. Sometimes I'm just listening on my headphones in the car. It just depends. It's not one certain way.
Yeah, unfortunately, our time is already up. But I would like to still ask you some questions because Peťo Hrubo would like to know something. But
questions.
yeah, he can ask you anytime, right? But I will need very short answer. But before that, you mentioned the podcast that you listen to while you are working out. Can you give us the name so if somebody is interested in it, they can find it?
Well, yeah, I mean, the name of it is this guy, this young pastor from out in California. His name's Chad Veach, and it's just called the Chad Veach Leadership Lean In. And
can you spell Chad Veach for us?
Sorry?
Can you spell Chad Veach for us?
Yeah, it's CHAD. I think it's VEACH.
Okay.
V, not W.
Okay. Because
yeah. So I mean, it's just something that I've been listening to for the last 6 months, and I'm not like somehow approving everything he says or whatever, but I have really benefited from it, and I enjoy it, and yeah, that's the main one that I've enjoyed in the last few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the last question, but there are some more, but we will not have time to answer all of the questions. But the last question that I would like to ask you is about teaching, because we know that that's your part of your role in Compass and also your gifting. And Peťo Hrubo would like to know, how did you become such a great teacher? If it's your personality or training, or maybe if you can give us some tips on how to become great teachers. So how did you become a good teacher, and how can we become good teachers?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever really tried to piece it all together, but I know that I grew up under good teaching. Like my father was a fantastic teacher, and my mother. They both taught in the church. They were both known as very good teachers. And other members of my family. I come from a long line of teachers. Like I'm the 5th generation teacher. And so somewhere it's probably in the DNA. And like my girls are amazing teachers. So like, where did they get it? It's hard to say. I think, I'm not getting a very short answer, am I?
But it's worth it, so you can continue. But yeah, try to keep it as short as possible.
So I think it's part of just like if you live in the house of a teacher, you get taught all the time, all kinds of stuff. So I think that was part of it. But I was educated, as a teacher. So I think that definitely is another part of it, that I was educated to teach in great teaching institutions.
And
then I've had practice, I've had so many years of practice. I've been teaching for, 30 years almost. So that you can't discount, the practice helps. But I don't think I'm that great of a teacher, but it's a gift from God too. You can't say that, it's just something that I believe God has called me to. And so he is giving me, it's part of my spiritual gift, I think. So when I teach, the Holy Spirit is making things happen. So, I don't think I have to be really careful to take any credit, because I think it's all a part of God's plan for me.
And do you have any tips for people who would like to maybe develop that gift of teaching?
Well, I've said this for the last couple of years, and I think it's true that everybody has to learn to teach, because you're going to be teaching one way or the other. If you're going to be a parent, you got to be a good teacher. If you're going to teach in your church, lead, you have to learn how to teach women, children. You're gonna teach. So most people, especially if you're involved in a church, like it's very important, I think, that people learn to teach, because they're going to teach at different times. And so I think people need to set their minds on that first and say, hey, probably I'm going to be teaching at least my children, so I should practice, start moving into this idea of being at least a capable teacher. And I think once you kind of switch that in your mind, then you start looking for resources, tools, opportunities to learn how to teach, to be a better teacher. And there's plenty of things out there and ways for you to learn. And I want to teach people too. So if you want to learn, I'll teach you what I know about teaching. Just write me.
Okay, perfect. So we can finish with this invitation. So if you are watching us now, or maybe later, if you would like to become a better teacher, you can write to Zach and work on that. There were some other questions that I will, Zach, write to you later in an email, and you can answer them personally if you would like to. So thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate that you spent this hour with us. And in the next week, so next Thursday, 6 p.m., you will be able to watch an interview with Peter Michalčík. So you can be looking forward to this. Okay, have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed it. Thanks for inviting me.